Are they going to raise it next year? For sure. That inflation's still too high. I mean, they released it, at 6.9%?
I think Canada was 8.1.
I can't see them stop adjusting rates. I'm actually going to slow it down a bit. I know people got so optimistic that they only raised 50 basis points rather than 75. I think everyone got excited. It's like, it's not going to end there. Hey guys, it's Steve.
And Mike.
Zalunardo Associates, we're here just talking about interest rates and if we're going to see further interest rate hikes into the 2023 season. Mike, you want to head it up?
Yeah, looking at, I would say the States is our biggest indicator just because they're leading the way for us as we're like their little brother. Looking at what Jerome Powell said last week, essentially is making a comment that he's not going to be focused on hitting a target, and they kind of already just shifted their target up. I think they're at 4.5 and now they moved it up to 5.25, right? So he's basically saying that they're going to analyze their data as it comes in and adjust accordingly. So I don't know, that kind of tells me that they don't know how high it's going to go, especially by him saying they don't have a target, but every time they're kind of meeting, they're adjusting their ceiling, right? Yeah. And looking at the job numbers, the jobs are very strong and kind of have to give way a little bit, unfortunately.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and it's
basically saying it's a recession.
they keep talking this fine line, right? And they're saying like we're trying to create that soft landing, but every time they raise rates, that fine line's getting tighter and tighter, right? So like kind of think of like Musk, like how many times did it take him to like land that rocket when it came back into orbit? Like I think like the 70s, 80s, 90s were kind of different times. So like we're kind of like starting all over to try and land that rocket. I don't think we're gonna land it the first time.
No, you said it right. Honestly, I don't see it happening. Are they gonna raise it next year? For sure. I can't see them. Why not? That inflation's still too high. I mean, they released it at 6.9%. It did come down from the height. It's like 2.5% down or something like that. Like it was at 9.1, I think, at one point.
I think Canada was 8.1 at the peak.
Canada, the US was 9.1. Yeah, it was a little higher. It'll be a while. Like I can't see them stop adjusting rates. I'm actually going to slow it down a bit. I know people got so optimistic that they only raised 50 basis points rather than 75. I think everyone got excited. It's like it's not going to end there. And you said it right too with the jobs. So they're basically saying that the jobs need to be weakened, like the job growth. So it's in a recession.
Kind of natural.
Yeah, it's a reset basically on what's happening.
I think it's going to be interesting, like coming into the new year, like talking to contractors, residential, commercial, just kind of what they're saying. A lot of guys have good work until like early next year, but the thing is like, how long is that going to last? And even talking to some of their like estimators, it's like estimates like sales, right? Like they're the forefront to bring those jobs in. They're pricing, but they're not pricing like big stuff. So they're pricing a lot more smaller projects, which kind of need those big jobs to keep you going, right? Those big jobs kept most of your guys busy, and those smaller jobs were little fillers just to like, okay, when the big job was slow for whatever reason, you kind of got the little guys
move them around, keep everybody employed.
So if you don't have that big job, I don't know, those big jobs, I don't know, it's gonna be hard. And there's like talking to through the grapevine, hearing of some big boys, they're usually pricing 12, 13, 14 jobs at this time, and they're only pricing like 2 or 3. I don't know, there's going to be a lagging effect, obviously, to see those jobs get hit, but I don't know how hard it's going to hit, but they're going to get hit.
100%, and this is what I was saying early on with residential, because if residential sales are not happening, even just in low-rise construction, like how many of those trades are going to be home? Electricians, plumbers, carpenters, like those are all unemployed. And we know like those are the highest paying jobs in our society, right? You know, making $100K, $120,000 is high paying jobs, right? If they're not making that kind of money, they're not putting that money back into the economy, like through purchases, through housing, upsizing housing, car purchases. So there's going to be a huge lag. And you checked in with one of your builder buddies there with the sales. And it's a big builder, we're not going to name it, but ultimately sales are dramatically off. Like they have so many houses to sell, and they're only sold 6. What was it?
It was I can't remember. It was like 10 within like 6 months or something.
Like come on, that's nuts. So then
I don't know why they adjust their pricing too much, right?
No.
So
well, how they can't adjust the pricing because the cost of land and material and labor and all that stuff. It's like how much can they adjust?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what their margins are. Even if they could, like I was doing numbers like from the height of the market to today, like Brampton's down like on the median 27%.
Yeah.
There's other areas that are down, like Oshawa's almost down like 30%. You know what I mean? Like Vaughan, Toronto's holding up a little bit better, but still like.
But Toronto was what, 16?
15, 16. Depending the east end of Toronto got killed. Like I guess
Scarborough
area. We're at like 26.
Yeah, because that all, I mean, the inflation, when the heart of Toronto got too expensive, it kind of like just spread it all around, and those are the ones that are going to get hurt first.
And I think like Scarborough even is like a lot of like smaller investors too that are getting hit right now for sure. Right? So, yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing. So I don't know how much could they drop their pricing. I'm sure they have a buffer, but is that buffer gone, right? Like
I don't know. I know like some of the contractors got lucky, like. Tradesmen rather is the big condo buildings that are in process now. Like unless that gets shut down with funding, I'm not sure. I mean, it happened in the States. Like they shut down funding and leave it as a skeleton. I don't know if that's going to happen here, to be honest. But ultimately, they have work for some of the, like my brother-in-law, for example, has got I think 3 to 4 years in that building, which he's lucky. He'll probably pass right through the recession and have a job, unless the funding stops, unless the bank says we're not going to give any more money. This is something on YouTube regarding a hotel that was being built in Las Vegas, and it was going to be the largest, biggest hotel ever, and this whole thing was $1 billion to build, and it was like a really big company that was doing it. I forgot the name of it, but ultimately during 06 and 07 when that started happening, they had the building up with glass, but then it was like the mechanicals were in, but they didn't retrofit the inside. They basically shut the financing up. Like every bank was pulling financing. Wow. JP Morgan, Lehman Brothers, before Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, but they were all pulling one at a time, so it stayed as a skeleton. They're into it for $1 billion, I think, at the time. They sell it for $128 million to the next guy. And this guy was, I think this was the CEO, I think Cooner was the last name. But anyway, $128 million. What he did is he's like, promise, we're going to build it, we're going to pump another $1 billion into it. He basically sold off all the items inside, all their finishes, all whatever it was, furniture. And then he sold it like 4 years later for like $600 million. Those people take it over at $600 million. They can't get financing again. Something happens, or something. I think there was another recession or something of that nature. Something happened there, and they sell it again. Now the original developers bought it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So just trading hands, right? But anyway, so just a long story short, does one of these condo buildings back here or in Toronto, do they pull financing? Can they? That's a good question, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know. Even like I've heard of like stories, for example, like in Vaughan, the building kind of got pulled and then was sold for X amount of dollars, and they expected like $1,000 square foot to build, but like, they're not gonna get $1,000 square foot in Vaughan to build. They're only gonna get like 800. Now you get 5,000 units on the line. Like, how do you put the shovel in the ground? You're not gonna.
But they didn't put the shovel in the ground yet.
No.
Okay.
So like even looking at that, like how many? Obviously, it's not gonna be. It might be a one-off. But like that's huge. Like that land's tied up now, and I don't know. Do they build it?
That's crazy. Mind you, if the condo buildings are being built, they have to sell a certain amount, right? I think it's 80% of them.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
So that's fine. So that's their safety net.
What if they can't sell that 80% at the price they need to sell it at, right?
So I guess they don't build.
Do you bring it to sale? Do you launch it?
I don't know. Can they not? I don't think they can put like they can start doing any construction without. But
I don't even think they're going to get to that point. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. So at least it stays in the ground. So they won't. So none of our buildings will kept as a skeleton here. Then I'm trying to say is like that because they'll have.
I guess it depends how far along they are. Do they sell that 80% and then I don't know. The mortgage got crushed by.
Yeah, no. But as long as they didn't put a shovel in the ground,
you're okay.
Yeah, who cares? You hold the land. But imagine you having a building like
that's another thing. How do you hold the land? Like when you pay like crazy prices for the project.
It's wild.
There's a lot of money on there every month.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's gonna be interesting times. I don't know.
Does that change hands like you just said to the next developer, right? At like 50% on the dollar, like.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure they will. Even these sites here, I think they're going to trade hands a few times. Smaller builders that have like 100 acres, 50 acres, and like white belt or ready to develop land. Like, how do you hold on to it unless it's paid in cash, right? A lot of these guys are on spec too. They're based on like 5 years down the road, where it's like they have enough money to kind of get to that point based on what they're selling now. Now, if they don't get to that, they don't have that extra kick going into that 5-year project, what do you do? It's going to be interesting. This is all going to be our learning curve for the rest of our lives for future investment, that's for sure.
Even how about that really small guy that we talked about a couple of weeks ago? Bought the land basically, let's call it $1 million.
Yeah.
100% loan to value. And
based on other assets.
Based on other assets, and then on top of it all, he's like into the line for like 1.5, and no one's gonna even come close to buying what he needs to unload just the lot, just from his interest that he's paid in the last year. So, like,
what happens
now? How many of those guys are gonna get killed?
What scares me on that one, it's tied to another asset.
And then that investment is
personal asset
eaten up.
But what do you do if they goes bankrupt? If they take that out, they're gonna take the house that it's tied to.
Yeah.
Jesus. See, that's the scary shit. There's a lot of people that did that. And you know what? In a good market, if it was 1 or 2 years before, he was a hero. Yeah. He was gonna be. He made it. He'd be at the coffee shop or whatever, the bakery. You know what I mean? As a hero, driving a G-Wagon. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions regarding real estate or your future investments, please reach out. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll get you on the next one. Ciao.